Welcome back to the channel, guys. I hope you're having a great evening. And so today we got, I didn't know it was a TV spot, but we've got the latest flying scene from Superman Legacy coming out this year, July the 11th. And so, what has been or what this is a continuation actually of what we got in the original trailer. We kind of saw the back of the head shot of Superman's flight, and it kind of felt kind of Top Gun Maverick like, right? It's like you're in a F-16, or you're in a one of these sophisticated fighter jets, right? And I thought it looked good. Now, some people are saying, they thought like the Man of Steel flight scenes were better done than this. And they were saying something to the effect of they felt like the face shot here of Superman David Cornsweet, it looks AI generated. It looks, it looks video game like CGI and whatnot, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I thought everything looked pretty darn good. It's very difficult to get perfection trying to make a man fly on camera, right? It has been years in the making of perfecting flight shots, right? So like for people who are kind of nitpicking this apart and going, oh, okay, the movie's going to be crap, because maybe you can see a wee bit of flight imperfections, right, in your opinion. Well, here's the thing, guys. Every Superman film that came out used cutting edge flight technology, right? They used the highest quality of technology of the day to produce flight scenes, and this is no exception, right? And so even if you go back to the Donner films, Christopher Reeve's flight scenes, right? You see, if we back then, I'm sure that was amazing. I bet people were blown away. But of course, if we look at those scenes now, we can see many imperfections, right? A third grader can probably do that on his computer today, right? And they kind of did the cutout flights. They did these kind of weird looking, mannequin shots and things like that. And here's the interesting thing, right? This is what I want you to keep in mind when you're analyzing this, right? If if this is what's throwing you off, right? Oftentimes when they would show these flight sequences, they would slow down the flight of Superman a great deal, right? And maybe I can show you what I'm talking about, right? Let me see if I can get a shot of what I'm talking about, just so you guys can have the image in your mind. Okay, this is cutting edge technology back in '78. Okay, see how so slow Superman's flying? And I mean, I still like this, but, obviously, you see how slow he's flying and stuff like that, right? So let's kind of go through the evolution of Superman a little bit here. That's a little faster. All right. All right. So this is Man of Steel's flight, right? Okay, what's the problem with this shot? See, look at this. It's not only is it shaky, but you can't really get a fix on Superman, right? See how that looks like? Okay, let me stop it right here. So you kind of see what I'm saying, guys, that the evolution of flight in Superman movies, even if you go back to the George Reeves Superman back in the 50s and such, right? That was cutting edge technology in flight, but you can see the imperfections in that, right? And we just showed Man of Steel, what a lot of people thought that was a great flight scene, and at the time it was a pretty good flight scene. It was one of the best Superman scenes, flight scenes we had seen, but it had imperfections. Now, here's why I think uh, the corn sweat Superman flight scene is the best. Okay, the reason I think the this is some of the best flying I've ever seen of Superman is, as you can see, we get a fix on Superman in his flying, right? The camera's not shaking. Uh, Now he's doing it. Of course, it has to be computer generated because he's doing things in there at that speed physically a human being couldn't do. Like when he does the twist going through the mountains of Antarctica, right? You can't duplicate that with a human being on a on a film, right? Because of course Superman is an alien. He's not a human, and he's able to do these type of body movements at that speed, right? So a lot of people say, well, it's feeling James Gunnish CGI from the Adam Warlock flight scenes, and yeah, they've improved on that technology since then, right? But this is revolutionary flight scenes for this is the most advanced stuff we have of today, right? So you're not going back to all of it. I thought the Superman Returns flight scenes, especially rescuing the plane scene, right? I thought that was some of the excellent flight scene. But if you really look at that, you're gonna find even for that time, what would have looked like kind of video game CGI movement of his character, right? And this is, during that time, right? So even in our own particular periods of time, we can see those elements, right? This is difficult to do. You got a human being flying on camera. It's going to be very hard to make that look realistic, right? Especially if you want to show extended long scenes, right? And so James Gunn is being very daring, right? He's being very daring at, because usually when they do a Superman flight scene, if they keep it on Superman too long, you start to see the imperfections. It doesn't look good, right? You understand what I'm saying? So James Gunn, I can tell he's going to be very daring in this movie, where he's going to do this, but he's showing you how good the technology has advanced. He's going to have these extended levels of flight with Superman, where you can see the character very, very well, right? And again, I know some people would say, "Oh yeah, well we kind of like uh, the Man of Steel flight sequences. You get the close-ups on Henry Cavill, and it looks like he's in turbulence, and I kind of like that too, right? I'm not knocking that. I thought that I like that element of it in there too, because of course, you're flying, you're gonna get uh, you're gonna get that turbulence and all that stuff, right, in the flight scenes, where it's going to be a very violent situation, right, with the flight. If you're flying at this speed, it's not going to be you know uh, it's not going to be like you're in a convertible. You're moving at Mach 10, Mach 20, or however fast Superman's flying. This is a violent affair. So why I'm saying this is probably going to be best, because only you can do this with CGI to really show effects of what that would be like, right? If that makes sense. Um, and so yeah, it's not perfect, right? Flying is not going to be perfect, right? Until these computers and our technology gets to the point where we can't distinguish a humanoid man flying like that from reality, right? But what I am saying is that up to this point, this is the best flying we've ever seen in any Superman depiction, right? That looks this quality of good, right? That's all I'm saying. And over the years, maybe flights will get better. Also, I'm sure it's going to be utter amazing flight scenes in the movie, where we're going to see some amazing things maybe we haven't seen before, right? I can believe that's going to happen, right? Because the reason I'm saying that is because anytime you do a Superman film, flying is going to be the number one thing you want to get right, right? You're gonna want to hit a lot of home runs on the flight scenes, and I think they're doing a pretty darn good job here. I think I probably wouldn't have noticed. You know, the people who really are going to nitpick this apart, okay, maybe if you work for a visual studio or something like that, right? You're just a person who's really, the average moviegoer. Only reason we're going to really pay attention to this now is because, people are blasting across the internet. But for the most part, uh, the first video I got up, I didn't even know it was a TV spot, was people complaining about the CGI look. So that brought my attention to it. Now, I wish I could have seen the TV spot before the criticism was out, because then my mental landscape wouldn't be so fixed on the face part, right? Uh, Maybe I would just be looking at, okay, it in a different way. But because they made such a big deal about it, yeah, I'm focused on it now. But does it take me out the movie? No, it really doesn't. The other thing, to keep in mind is that this is, or I remember or keep in mind, the James Gunn element to this Superman approach. I think is going to be a little bit, not a little bit. It's going to be more in the comic book realm, right? Uh, and so when you consider that, remember how Adam Warlock flew through his scenes, right, in the Guardians of the Galaxy. But even though all that happened, I was still very much emotionally invested in the characters. Like the Adam Warlock flight scene didn't really bother me, right? Um, and so remember, Superman's fighting a kaiju in this movie, right? This big, huge looking kaiju. That thing looks more comic booky than realistic, right? So I think part of the problem with some of the people who might have an issue with this is that Superman, is that they're looking at it like the more gritty, realistic Superman. Again, they're going back to the Snyder Man of Steel, more grounded, more realistic Superman image, right? And in that case, you're gonna want the film to look gritty, realistic, like a Batman, like a Christopher Nolan Batman film, right? So anything that looks out of sync with that, you're going to is gonna not sit well with you, right? If that makes sense. But if you can suspend that and go, this is Superman live action in a comic book movie, right? That has some good character development, because I think James Gunn's good at character development. Then it's not going to bother you so much. It's going to fit right in. It's going to fit in with the Green Lantern Corps, with the Gardner Bowl cut. It's got to fit in with Hawk Girl. It's going to fit in with all these these characters in this bright comic book looking movie, right? And again, this is coming from a guy who likes the rated R superhero films, right? This is coming from a guy who wanted all superhero films to be realistic and win an Oscar one day, right? And so, you know, this kind, unless we go back to maybe the first Superman, right? That hasn't happened since then, right? Not with a superhero of Superman's caliber. Maybe Batman, right? With the Dark Knight and such. But it's a lot easier to do a Batman movie as a realistic movie than doing a Superman movie. You got a man flying, for goodness sakes, right? So all things considered, when you consider all that, I think it makes a lot more sense, right? But I think that's all I want to say in it. You guys can tell me all what you think, but I would say again, keep in consideration some of the points I bring out in this video in relation to what type of movie this is, right? This is a comic book movie, right? With good character development, right? It's more in the comic book world, right? Not in the Christopher Nolan world, not in the realistic world, right? So, maybe that's where it needs to be, right? Maybe that was the balance that was missing from it, and why we've had so many problems with these Superman films getting them right since the first Superman, right? But that's all I want to say in this episode. Guys, if you like my take on content like this, make sure you do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification bell at the top of your screen that lets you know and announces to you when new videos come out. As always, take care of yourselves and each other.